I would like a week where we're like, nothing bad happened this week.
I will say, to be fair, because
not as bad as the Trump era.
Yeah,
That's
exactly
what you're
what I was
going to say.
gonna
Our
say.
show is coming after the Trump.
I was lamenting
post-Trump era leftist show.
I was lamenting that, you know what, we should have just stuck to our fucking guns and started the show like 3 years ago, because the content we would have to make these shows would be so much easier.
It's a new world out there, though.
I mean, there are still some shitty things happening, but at a much slower rate.
Right.
And now you have actually time to focus on those things and discuss them, but because now the news cycle doesn't move as fucking fast as it did.
In fact, after the Biden inauguration, I felt lost for like the first week or two, because I'm used to waking up every morning. I go to
you
my
have to
phone.
Prep. You have to be like, I can't do this first thing in the morning.
I do
I can't
scroll,
get PTSD from looking at the news immediately.
That's basically what I doom scroll in the morning, see what happened overnight while I was sleeping. And then,
What bullshit tweet came out at 2 a.m.?
At least a week or two, I'm like, every morning I'd check. I'm like, there's fucking nothing. So I stopped checking before I go to bed. So now I have stuff to see in the morning.
But even then, it's like, for a while there, we did have the slew of GOP bills who were, correcting the mistakes they did. They learned from, how to rig an election, but also the abortion shit we talked about last week. But nothing really since then, I think that's, like bill-wise, that would piss us off.
Yeah.
At least this week. I mean, I do keep an eye on those things,
Right.
but nothing that I think.
Speaking of abortion, though, can we do a abortion on Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Late term.
Late term?
Yeah, I mean, according to her,
Was that today she said that?
yeah,
Was that a tweet today, or was that a...
yeah, the so-called
That was
Equal
yesterday.
Rights Amendment is designed to do one thing: abortion on demand up until birth and perhaps after birth.
Well,
After birth abortions, that's the thing.
The kid is, still your property until they're 18, so abortion should be up until 18.
So wait, like post-birth... hold on, let me get... So like post-birth abortion, so they should like yeet the baby out the window like after it's born, or like how's that work?
Nobody knows, but can we please do it to Marjorie Greene Taylor?
We need to have... Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Greene.
We need to have, like... I swear to God, we bring this bitch up like once a week with some like the bullshit that she pulls.
Oh, yeah, we need
She's
a...
the Trump now.
Because
Marjorie
he's banned from...
every week.
I wonder if he like sends her letters to like post on Twitter because he can't and shit. Like he sends her emails like, can you post this? Because he's so butthurt. No, because he has those press releases, those whiny ass baby press releases that he'll just send out.
You can
because
tell
he
they're
can't
actually
tweet.
written by him, though. He doesn't use a speechwriter. You can say that about him.
He looks so rough.
I still guarantee someone spell checks that for him, though. I mean, Kafifi.
Once again.
All right, welcome to Apostates on the Fringe, the podcast where we discuss religious and political news from a leftist atheist perspective. The show is sponsored by the Atheist Society of Knoxville. We're your host. I'm Dustin.
Alistair.
And Sam.
And what are you drinking tonight, Al?
I am drinking Highland Brewing from Asheville, North Carolina. Their Black Mocha Stout.
How was that?
It's pretty good. It's
You
not
like
the-
that better than the mango kush you had last week, or is it just
No.
no? Okay.
Yeah, it's just not my favorite dark beer. It's not horrible, but
That was the last time you said you went there and they were just limited on what they had remaining in the
Mm-hmm.
like choose your own selection sort of thing. But you just wanted to make sure you got the mango kush.
yeah.
Okay. Sam, you got something a little fancy over
Yeah, I decided to go all out today.
What you got,
It's
bro?
the chocolate moon pie stout.
there. Where do you find this?
I got this at Beard and Beer Market.
I was gonna
See,
say
that's
I think
where I
I
need to
saw
start
it.
going more
Yeah.
often because
It's right next to me.
It's unfortunately like nowhere near where I drive unless I intentionally make a
It's
hard
the opposite.
like detour.
It's on my way, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I can move around where I work, so there's certain times I plan to work out there just so I can make it kind of on my way home.
Yeah, they had a lot of interesting stuff, and sometimes you're just like, how can they pull that off? And you get it out of pure curiosity.
They have the best
how they do
selection,
it.
I think.
Yeah.
I've heard, and unfortunately today I had a very busy week. I was closing, like I mentioned before to you guys while we're just kind of bullshitting before the show, that this week was a different week for me at work. I hadn't been able to get out and travel as much, so I wasn't able to try and find something new or something that I hadn't had in a while. But I went back to my fan favorite, of course, the Wiseacre Brewing Company in Memphis. The
You are
Gotta Get Up
right,
to Get
though.
Down.
It does taste different after they changed the coffee that they
It
use.
is still again one of my favorites.
still
So
good.
when
I
if
drank
I
a
can
few
find
this
it,
weekend.
it was the only thing, because when I went to go look, aside from fucking IPAs, it was that.
Is that the 2020 edition?
Yeah, it says the 2020s edition. I'm not gonna scan the QR code to read more about the visual dissonance, what the can says, but it's still very good. I mean,
That must have been when they changed their coffee.
Yeah.
I hadn't had it since I
It's
didn't think I
still
had it
good.
all last year, because normally I only get this when I go out to like Scruff City Hall or the rooftop bars in Market Square, which I really hope we can start doing later once the vaccines start getting out, because
I'll get ours.
yeah.
Do it.
So before we get into our stories, for the last couple of weeks, we've been kind of talking about cancel culture, and Facebook has been canceling a lot of things. Sam, I know this kind of threw you into a rage, but this is about the Catholics, the Catholic statement that
Yeah.
was just placed out. Let me basically, Pope Francis says that Catholic priests can't bless same-sex unions because God cannot bless sin, which comes to really no surprise to anyone. It's
Yeah, I love how everyone's been trying to like label this pope as the liberal,
progressive?
the liberal progressive pope, and I guess compared to his entire church's history,
No,
that's-
he's not your friend.
That's
Now-
true, but he's not. He's still the fucking enemy.
Yeah,
he's not cute. It's not cute. He's still a fucking bastard.
yeah, he's not your friend, but apparently
I can't call him a bastard on Facebook.
you can't. And apparently there have been several posts that have been criticizing this and been regarding the Catholic Church's stance.
Yeah, so
on this,
I
because
did a lot of I spent some time doing studies of seeing what I could and couldn't call Catholics, and versus what you can and can't call gay people on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I think what did go through was my share of Franklin Graham's post saying Franklin Graham, who's a Baptist for people that don't know, was applauding the Catholics for coming together on on the decision that yes, gay people are going to hell, and that they deserve
Graham
that.
could go fuck himself.
So that's not hate speech. See, it's not hate speech to say that an entire sexual preference deserves to be tortured forever. That's not worthy of being canceled. But calling someone a bad person for saying that's where you get canceled.
I want to correct that. I don't want to call it sexual preference. I want to say their identity, like who they identify as, because they believe it is a choice. They think it is a preference, and that is their choice to live sinful lives. And that is the whole basis of their arguments, because they don't know fucking biology or psychology.
There's this. So, I've learned some things about Facebook, like what they deem as like
I'm sure you've
bullying
been.
and what's not. So,
You've
like,
been-
I'm very careful about how, like, if I'm going to insult somebody, like, instead of calling someone stupid, I'll say, "Are you dense?" Because Facebook doesn't pick up on that. And I use this because when I get in arguments with right-wingers, it's so easy to get them to call me names, and I just fucking put them in timeout by reporting their comments. But when it comes to flat-out racism, I will report that shit all day long,
Never
and it
gets
always
taken down.
comes back as this does not violate
Yeah.
our standards. But the Atheist Society of Knoxville has this private group, and one of our members made a comment that says "better than idiot Christians," and I'm not even looking at the original post. I don't know what it was.
I'll say it was an image of a brain. It was just a drawing of a brain, and it said "atheist starter pack."
Yeah.
And so there was a comment that said "better than idiot Christians."
And Facebook
Immediately.
removed it rather quickly, 6 minutes after it was posted, because it's hate speech. But
See, another thing I do is when I get something flagged on Facebook, I'll say the same thing on Twitter, just to see if it'll catch, and it doesn't. It is specifically
Here's a thing. So I got a 30-day ban last month because a literal fucking Nazi, like, you go to his fucking page and it's Nazi shit. It's straight up Nazi shit. There's no other way to describe it. It's like, it's just Nazi shit.
Right.
And so I tell this guy, go hail Hitler. It's all you're good at. I got a 30-day ban for that.
Really?
For telling a Nazi to hail Hitler.
Yes. So I went over to my backup account, and I was like, apparently suggesting that somebody hail Hitler, go hail Hitler because they're a Nazi is hate speech, and I'm on a 30-day ban. And I didn't even get to post it. Facebook immediately flagged it. You can't say... No, I actually, instead of saying Hail Hitler in that post, I called it the Sieg Heil.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what got it. The word Nazi will get it. Saying Hitler will get it. There's, like, any reference to fucking Nazis.
Regardless of context.
Regardless of context. And I even set that for a review. Actually, I set it for a review, and Facebook did come back and say it did not violate their standards, but they did not lift my ban.
Facebook is an extremely conservative brainwashing platform.
Yet they claimed, and this was yesterday, I didn't even pull up the article because I thought it was I didn't believe... the article was that Facebook is cracking down on, the groups by content. I'm like, no, they are fucking not.
The state this country is in, as much as we want to blame Trump and everything else, Facebook has had a huge, huge hand in.
Yeah, Facebook's a huge reason that Trump even got elected.
The reason we have militias forming all over this country is because of Facebook. It gave them a place to go and organize. Facebook just fucking looked the other way. Because we were finding these groups. We were reporting these groups. They didn't do anything. They let it continue because they didn't want... Because it was bringing them money. They got money.
See, that's where you gotta see the real connections here. That, is Facebook fascist itself? Like, is Zuckerberg a Nazi? No, he's a capitalist.
So apparently...
And he's found out that there's more money in being a fucking Nazi than there is in being a leftist. And there was
something AOC... God, I can't remember the full context of it. But she asked Zuckerberg something. And it was...
Is it during his hearing when he looked like a robot?
Yeah, well, he always looks like a robot.
But this one, that was weird, though. If you saw the hearing, that was weird.
It's all the time when he's in it, because that's not the first hearing that he's been to, and he's always just real robotic. But it was... AOC... It was asking about one of his... the fact checkers, which was a known white supremacist site. And his reasoning for it, that's what I don't remember. But the long story short, he came back with something, it was some kind of answer, and she's like, so what you're pretty much saying is it's okay to have white nationalists fact-checking this information. And he's just like... deer in headlights.
He did. It was
fuck.
It was a watch people die inside moment. I wish I had the video because I saw the same video, and she was spot on with that with the questioning and had no answer to that at least before they cut away. But it was the fact they have openly a white nationalist. It was a white nationalist.
Mm-hmm.
Quote,
That's
unquote,
a lot of
fact-checking.
I've heard this excuse made for Facebook before. That a lot of so their whole thing is based on like we said, no one actually reported your shit. It got picked up by the algorithm. But the people teaching that algorithm are literally Nazis.
Yeah. And that's why I can get banned for calling out Nazi shit, but the person saying Nazi shit gets to keep saying their fucking Nazi shit
because
online.
The people teaching the AI to catch shit is literally a Nazi. Literally. Like, Facebook is literally full of Nazis.
Fuck Zuck.
So
fuck Facebook.
A lot of those people. So
I'm
a lot of people who
there,
there are some who ultimately are removed from the platform. And I did hear of the rise of an app called Clubhouse, and it's an invite only. And this is now where the anti-Semites and bigotry is moving over to. And they had a very large meeting regarding, anti-Semitism in the United States, and that apparently is okay. So apparently it's a record. It's like it's a recording apparently. Like it's an audio thing, and a lot of people can join in, and unless it's saved by a particular person, it all gets deleted as soon as everyone leaves the chat. And that's where a lot of groups are moving over to right now because it is invite only, and it's a way to try to prevent the infiltrators that you have mentioned in some of this. And
it's to keep me out.
To keep you out and to keep...
By infiltrators, you mean me.
It's to keep Al out. I don't know how does one even get... How does one even get to promote such an invite-only thing? I don't even know how that would work. I mean,
I know
probably,
some people who would make it through. I know.
But how would you broadcast like, "Hey, we're having this"? I know they
through private messages.
What's that other app? The other app that they moved on to?
Parler?
Not Parler.
There's Telegram.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah, Telegram. They've been on Telegram for quite a while.
Okay, so they'll broadcast it on Telegram, but to get the invites into that, and I guess it's a way to try to prevent those texts.
Oh
from being
shit!
copied.
If they're putting the invites on Telegram, anti-fascists are going to be over there quick.
So I just know that's just popped up lately. That was something I heard about earlier this week, and that's where they're trying to, because there are some actions being taken by Facebook to remove certain groups. I know they removed a lot of the Proud. Did they remove Proud Boys groups?
Proud Boys are gone. Yeah, they are removing like 3%ers, maybe. QAnon, they're saying is gone, but I still see some of them around.
But
they do what they have to do.
The bare minimum to say they're making action.
Minimum, yeah.
Yeah, I think, but towards individuals making those posts, I think they're
they don't give a shit.
I haven't had anything removed, but I'm not as, I guess I'm not as vocal, at least on Facebook, because I'm not trying to catch a ban, and plus I have several employee colleagues on my Facebook that I'd rather not let that come out.
I just have a backup already ready.
To us.
They know the show exists. I can guarantee none fucking listen, which is good for me.
I don't know. I think some of my old coworkers they probably would have listened. They wouldn't have agreed with everything, and they would have come in and been like, "Yeah, I think you were wrong here." But
I get messages all the time about like from listening to the show, and they disagree with a lot of things, and they make sure to let me know. And
it's funny because my friends are like, "You know what? You were so right about this."
I was going to call him out. It's my dad. He'll listen to this.
Your
and
dad.
I'm yelling. I'm talking to you right now. You're the one fucking.
We're finding our audience.
Yeah, he listen. I give him credit. He's not as far left as he's nowhere near far left, but he listens.
I mean, my dad's not listening, so.
And then he'll message me like throughout, like as he's listening. He's like, "Fuck this, fuck that," and I'm like, "No, fuck you." And like we do sometimes get into it, and he gets. And like late at night too, I'm like, I'm too drunk for this. Like, stop.
The thing is, my dad will be like drunk. I'll message him throughout the day, and I'll hear from him back later in the night. And I know he's drinking because he's my dad, and he drinks at night. So,
as do I, and he knows I'm doing it. I think he knows I'm doing it.
But I'm sober as fuck, and my dad will like send me these long messages, and he'll somehow or another will get on politics. Although I will say I started the last couple because, first he had mentioned to me several years ago something about 3%ers, and then I made it into a 3%, like their official board. And I was like, Dad, you've mentioned 3%ers before. I'm like, you're not involved in that shit, are you? And he's like, I'm not an extremist. You're more of an extremist than me. And I'm not
familiar with 3%ers.
No, it wasn't. It was Oath Keepers. My bad.
Oh, well, what are 3%ers?
Okay, so only 3% of the citizens stood up and took arms against the British in 1776. Supposedly.
That's my Letterkenny fandom kicking in.
The Oath Keepers are a bunch of military and police officers who have taken the oath to defend this country, and they think that means against us leftists. But my dad had mentioned that because my dad and I are both political. I'm more political than he is, so I'm like trying to educate him on some stuff because his education comes from the military.
Oh.
He's not as far
Django.
right as many people you would expect in the military. He is more center, but
but center for a military personnel is also still pretty far fucking right, I would imagine. Or are you saying center for our
ours,
climate?
he's a centrist,
Okay.
very much. He's one of those both sides.
I kind of think my dad is
And-
too, but I think he trolls me because I think he knows, like, especially because he'll listen like on Saturday night, and like I know I'm drinking on a Saturday night, and he'll message me at, like he'll say, "All right, I'm listening." I'm like, don't fucking do that right now.
Yeah.
But then he'll start messaging me at like 11:30, 11:45 to start picking apart certain points. And I'm like, I can't deal with this right now.
I keep trying to like wake my dad up on things. Like, you really need to pick a side here. Like, first of all, if our government, like Trump kept saying he still wants to make Antifa a terrorist organization. Hey, guess what, Dad? If I'm declared a terrorist, you can't get a security clearance to continue working. You may want to stand up against these kinds of things.
I have a success story, by the way. So, and a lot of the right, the conservative, they are told by Fox News and everyone else that Antifa are more prevalent and, the attackers, just like the KKK. And I was like, do you know what Antifa is? I asked them, like, do you know what Antifa is? They're like, well, no. They didn't really know. It's like, they're anti-fascist. Yes, you've seen them clash on the streets, but look who they're clashing with. Look who they're fighting. Look who they're provoking. It's always the Nazis, the Proud Boys. And they're there a lot of times to protect the bystanders and keep them away. I have never seen, at least, there are some outliers. There's always going to be outliers of any kind of person because it's not an organization. It's an idea. It's a movement, and that's why
No, we're an official organization. It's a nonprofit organization.
Are you the CEO?
I am not the CEO. I am head of human resources. We do have a CEO, though. We get fat paychecks from Soros.
George Soros.
Yeah.
You would not believe these paychecks that we get. Like, I lied earlier today when I said I lived in a $900 apartment when I was talking to you, Dustin, or last night. I was like, I really have a $1 million mansion out in fucking
With your Soros money?
Farragut. Yeah.
So I was actually successful in explaining what the movement actually is and who do you always see them engaging with. And, like, do you agree that there should be fascism? No? Hey, guess what? You are anti-fascist. Now, you're not fighting people on the streets, but it's an idea. It's a movement. And I made some headway on that. But that was just one conversation. That's, people think Antifa, because it's fucking Fox News.
Right.
And other media like that espouse these ideas that Antifa is the enemy of the right. Which kind of makes you think that why are they an enemy of the right if their main if they're if who they fight against or push back against are the neo-Nazis, the Proud Boys, the white nationalists. What does that say about the right and who they prop up as heroes or defend? So
the one thing I give my dad, like I said, he was born, or he went into the military at like 17, 18 years old. It was before I was born. While he's retired from the military, he's a civilian working for the military now. So he does not agree with me on everything politically, but my dad is real quick to say, I'm proud of you. And he says he's proud of me because he says he went to the military because he thought it was the right thing to do to protect his country, to fight for his country. He's like, while I don't agree with you, he's like, you are out there doing everything you can to fight for your country and what you think is right for your country. He's like, and I'm proud of you for doing that. And so I like, there's this mutual respect that he at least recognizes that I am fighting. That, there's things I want to see for my country, and I'm fighting to see those things. And I appreciate the fact that he can at least recognize that.
I mean, I was going to say that you're saying that Antifa is the enemy of the right, and
that's how they see it.
I mean, it's true.
It's true.
Like, I don't know, my leftist views, I don't know if every leftist has these views, that the foundation of conservatism is fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but
like, even if you're a libertarian, you believe that the foundation of conservatism, the very foundation, is we need to, like, the beginning, the pre-conservative conservatism was the king is right, the king needs to rule us. That's fascism.
Well,
And then now it's even libertarianism is people that make it to the top to own all the money and create the jobs and do whatever they deserve. They are in that position because they deserve that position, so they deserve to rule us. Like, even that position.
I think we could all agree, like, one thing that has joined us is our opposition to Christofash, the Christian fascists. You know, we met through Atheist Society. It was us, you know, we looked for a place to find each other because of Christofascism. It was being drilled into us and forced upon us, and so we felt we needed to go somewhere where it wasn't forced upon us, and we found each other through atheists.
And you know what? For me, that was actually during the height of the 2012 election of Obama and Romney, and because the right, even though he was Mormon, they latched on to who would you vote for, the Mormon or the Muslim. And that's the shit that really kind of sparked that sparked not only my my atheism in terms of my political views. I mean, that's when I was like, obviously the left is more towards what aligns with secular or non-theistic beliefs, and that's where I attached it to that because of the rhetoric during that election. And that's when I almost immediately I found this group, and to what you're saying, to have that camaraderie for the people that can support that. And but I think that was kind of the catalyst because that was the first time I actually paid attention to religion and politics and how they say they separated the separation of wall and state, but churches were posting that shit up all over the place, vote for the Mormon over the Muslim and shit like that, and it just infuriated me.
In one of my groups there was I can't remember what church it was, but it was definitely a church that was discussing a lot of political shit and advocating for a thing. And they're like, why hasn't anybody reported them to the IRS? Well, there's two things. If you are an official church, you do not have to register for an IRS with the IRS.
They're specifically talking about the Johnson Amendment.
Huh?
They're specifically talking about the Johnson Amendment, which is they can't a 501c3 can't endorse a candidate, but
right.
They get away with it all because
you do. If I found this out with the Satanic Ministry when I went to go register it as a church, churches do not have to register. Like Atheist Society had to register as a nonprofit through the IRS to get tax exemption. Churches don't have to do that. They automatically get tax exemption for being a church.
Well, not only that, but there were churches who were specifically doing it on purpose because they want the Johnson Amendment challenged because they think it's a violation of the First Amendment.
Right.
And so they were intentionally doing it to coax people to go out to send complaints to the IRS so the IRS would take action. But the IRS never took action.
But the IRS, the other thing I brought up to this group on why this church hadn't been shut down is because the IRS does not investigate churches.
No.
It's very, very fucking rarely. I think if you're an extreme cult that is growing, like, largely, they may
large
look
enough to have
in.
enough money that they want to look in.
Like Jonestown, IRS may have been looking for before they moved overseas. I think they were the ones that did, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So there may they may have seen some. That may have been why they moved overseas because IRS was looking into them. I don't know, but there's, it takes a lot for the IRS to go after a church, and it's usually cults that they deem cults.
Yeah, they were actually taunting the IRS. They were sending them sermons via media, like copies of VHS or whatever the fucking low tech they had that had them on the pulpit endorsing a candidate just to taunt them.
They don't enforce it,
and they didn't. No.
So while we have that little disclaimer at the end of our show saying Atheist Society, but we're not a church.
Right, we're not a church. We are sponsored by the group, but we do want to make sure that while we're not shitting on any candidate at the moment, we're going to make sure to follow those rules because we are going to follow the official guidelines of the 501c3, while churches don't have to because we're better than that.
Yep.
So it didn't really. This story I'm about to talk about didn't really make a whole lot of mainstream news. It was only reported locally, which I found odd. It was a mass shooting in Chicago that happened overnight in a warehouse party. It was like a towing company / repair shop / bar, because apparently at night they converted and they had this
In Chicago.
In Chicago,
Okay, that sounds normal.
So. But I guess because of all the, I don't know if it's because there's a lot of always
That's
violence in
actually pretty
Chicago.
normal up there, but that's true too.
I mean, I was already kind of pissed. It's like, hey guys, hashtag COVID protocols, what are y'all doing? But there was a mass shooting. There were 15 shot and at least 2 dead.
Oh.
And no one reported on it except locally. And I thought that was kind of strange. Not a lot of details. They don't have the suspect. They don't have any suspect. They recovered 4 guns, I believe.
Yeah,
at the scene.
I would have to hit up my Chicago friends, but it might be one of those things where it's like, hey, I heard this place got shot up. What's up with that? And they're like, oh yeah, that shit happens there all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it could just be
that's
one of
kind
those
of
type of
what
things.
I'm assuming.
But it's still a mass shooting in terms of how many people were hit and how many people were killed. I mean, 15 were injured, 2 dead. I mean, I'm sure that does qualify as a mass shooting, and with the hard-on that media has for mass shootings.
But they're less about, like, gang violence.
I mean, it was
That's
mass
assuming it's a
shootings.
gang bar, but it very well could be.
Right, or is it because it's Chicago and, gun violence in Chicago
both,
is... Yeah.
But
I was just surprised that, and then we read this shitty news article. It was the first one we read, that after they reported on the facts of the incident, they immediately started like shitting on the place itself, and that they've had violations and that they've had complaints against them, and like completely devalued the loss of life and injuries that occurred there, just to point out that this business has had violations and complaints before. I thought it was kind of shitty reporting. I mean, there
was an incident that happened in Knoxville where somebody was killed in a Burger King right off Broadway, and a Burger King. They weren't even at the club. They were in the drive-thru of a Burger King, and they were shot because some people at a club close by shot at each other and missed, and it killed somebody like the next block down. And either of you, neither of you heard about that?
I actually
club
heard about
shooting
that one.
happened. But of course, things that came out about that was, hey, this place is a hellhole. Like this shit happens here all the time, and like, I do know the place. It is a dangerous place. I wouldn't have gone there. Like, I would have felt like I was going to get shot. Sometimes those places just kind of exist.
It looked more like community violations, not so much passive violence. And this is why I was making the distinction.
Sometimes it can be both, Sometimes it can be literal gangsters, drug dealers, like, trying to run a front or a place.
They said it was some kind of celebration. That the party that they were at was some kind of celebration.
Yeah.
And that it started with a dispute at the front. So, and I think one thing that like causes the media to really pick up on stuff is like where there's no known reason right off for why this happened.
You think it's also because they don't have a suspect? Like if they had a suspect, they would as well. You don't think so with there? Okay.
I mean, think about the Nashville bombing. That made news immediately. It
well,
was
I
all
mean,
over the
that
place.
was a very large explosion in a very massive city. I don't think that's really apples to
But
oranges.
nobody was killed during that.
Except the
property was hurt,
Well,
though.
yeah.
the bomber himself. Yeah. Which they did.
That's a suicide. That's
Yeah,
not a killing.
True.
That poor property was hurt, okay? They're still trying to pour
Do
money
you guys
right back
remember?
into those
Do
buildings.
you guys remember where that was just a test run? People were claiming that was just a test run for.
It was over 5G
I mean, everybody
shit.
was really tense. I mean, that was in the peak of us watching all the QAnon and white supremacists talking about, the violence that they wanted to engage in. And then this happened, and that's, it was the not knowing who it was made people really, and it seemed more like sophisticated. Like, it seemed targeted, which we know it was targeted now. And it's like, how did he get away with this? Could he have done it on his own? And so a lot of people with that added paranoia, because we're watching, especially on the left, where we're going into these groups and we're seeing them making plans and talking and stuff. And so... yeah, we put all of that into this scenario. It's like, well, what's next? What more is going to happen? I know among my friends, I was one being like, think this is probably one guy. He did, like, it didn't seem to be anything
the way that
mass
he warned
organized.
people was weird. Yeah,
That was weird.
Yeah.
But to what you said earlier, and I'm going to push my little cancel culture thing aside because you brought up a point that a story I was going to bring up later, but it's a perfect way to segue into it. This is from CNN.com. U.S. intelligence reports say election fraud claims will almost certainly spur more violence by domestic extremists. So U.S. intelligence agencies believe that narratives of fraud in the recent general election and the emboldening impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol will almost certainly spur domestic extremists to try to engage in additional acts of violence this year, according to the unclassified summary of a new joint assessment released Wednesday. So continuing, that warning was included in a comprehensive classified assessment of domestic violent extremism produced by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice, which was ordered by the White House in January. I mean, so this is some of the things you were talking about earlier. They fully expect that, you know, the hatred and the lies that were brought during the Trump era when he was lying about the election results will fuel more far-right extremists and violent responses.
I've been saying it since July of last year that after elections, things are going to get violent. Now, the Trump's rhetoric and his refusal to concede and leading people on to think that there was fraud, that postponed the violence. That drug people along and gave his supporters enough hope to not go out. You know, it's just like, we're going to get it overturned in court, so, you know, we just have to be patient. And so it slowed down, but now it's finalized. Now Biden is the president. We're going to start seeing more and more acts of mass violence, I think.
One thing I don't know, you can say if you think this is true, that I've noticed about them is they kind of, like, with the insurgency and even the March 4th event, they kind of feel like they don't need to do it because someone else is going to do it for them to a point where they're like, somebody's going to go out there and, you know, overturn this stuff. And they're like, expect other people of their like mind to do
eventually
stuff.
That will wane, though, and then they're going to, you know, act out. And that kind of also segues into a recent event. I know we're going to be discussing the shootings in Atlanta, but this interesting enough that I saw this before I read about and heard about the Atlanta shootings, and this was on The Guardian. An assessment. This is another assessment as they're doing. This is by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that racist extremists pose the most deadly terrorist threat to the U.S. The intelligence report warns, and kind of what just happened in Atlanta.
I'm so glad that they're issuing these warnings that the anti-fascist researchers and, you know, the community has been screaming about for a while. Like, yeah, thank you for finally
Trump
addressing
was kind of
this.
minimized that for 4 years and gaslit everyone into saying we were crazy for saying so. Even liberals gaslight us for saying so.
So let's talk about that little prick on Tuesday.
Go ahead.
The what was his name?
Are we getting into it
The
now?
Brown?
Aaron Long.
He looks like the incel
Robert
type.
Aaron Long, was it?
Yes, Robert Aaron Long, and he finally was charged with 8 counts. I know he was initially only charged with 4. He has now been charged with 8 counts.
But they're refusing to call it a hate crime still, aren't they?
They
I mean,
are, because
has he
they're
said
buying
any-
his bullshit. They're buying his bullshit, and it's probably because the official's like, yeah, that sounds. Which I'll get into later. The
Has
official
he-
says we're going to the official later. In fact, that's going to be part of our
ACAB of
That's
the
going to be part
week.
of our ACAB of the week when we get to his response to this. So it's going to be follow this.
It's like
But
fuming.
he was basically claiming that it was his sexual addiction and that, okay, how far away were these places? And these were primarily all Asian places, Asian women.
I mean,
There were
There was
other
one male that was
massage
shot.
parlors around that were not Asian owned. If it's a sex addiction, there were probably several strip clubs he passed
this is Atlanta,
in
so
between
sure.
there. There were probably streets he could have gone to indiscriminately shoot sex workers. There are other ways he could have did it. He specifically targeted Asian-owned businesses. Well, even if you want to go sex addiction, that means he was fetishizing Asian women, which is just another form of racism.
was he connecting massage parlors with sex?
So if you go to the reviews of one of the I didn't check all 3 of the massage spas, but one of them, all throughout the reviews, were like, yes, it's that kind of massage parlor.
See, I was wondering if that had a thing.
So yeah, there was sex work. It seems like there was sex work happening at these massage spas.
Okay, well, he could have been.
I still don't buy it.
I mean, I don't completely. I need to hear more about this guy's history before I'm going to say that it.
He was
completely race.
He was a nice Christian boy, a little shy,
I heard
but
that part. And he just wanted a handy J, and these sinful women were going to hike up the price for him because he looked like a mass murderer. Because did you see his picture? Because he looks like
like a mass murderer.
I mean, not to racially profile, but if you have that kind of beard, you're a mass murderer.
And it was the picture that they put out wasn't even like it before they got his like mugshot video or photo. He just has this angry look, like he's ready to go start shooting people. It shouldn't have been a surprise. Like, I can look at that picture and be like, he's scary.
Yeah, and was it 3 different locations that were visited? So three separate
Were they
locations.
all near each other?
No, they were different counties even.
So he shot up a place, got in his car, drove to the next place?
Drove 27 miles
27
to get to the
okay.
second location. And
so he had like a
other one
list
was-
of places
He had
that
a
he was
list.
gonna go. Okay.
He had to have.
They said he was when they caught him. They asked him where he was heading, and he said he was heading to Florida to the same type of business to carry out the same type of actions.
The same type of business. He said that?
Yeah.
Type of
well,
business.
I mean, I don't know if that was that's what the
okay.
press conference yesterday.
I mean, obviously, I'm speculating that he had a list, but to drive 27 miles after already doing I mean, you would think that he had a.
He could have been on his phone Googling and picking this. Like, who knows if he would have gone straight to Florida or if he would have tried to stop at different. I don't know if there's any city large enough to have one of those. Because, like, I don't even know if Knoxville has a spa that gives, like,
Handy J's?
yeah.
the
happy ending specials.
Yeah.
Well, from him being a Christian, because of course he is. He, like you said, he said that he's an incel.
I mean, he didn't say he's an incel.
But
he's an incel.
He's an incel. He said without saying that he's an incel. I mean, Christians have that, that fight. That's why we get these Christian murderers that have this internal struggle between I want sex. My brain tells me that sex is good, and my religion tells me it's a sin. So everyone who is trying to give sex out for money is a sinner, and I need to kill all of them. And maybe it was a bit of racism to connect the sex work with the Asian-owned ones.
I think
it's
kind of a trope, isn't it? It's kind of a trope
he
for
truly
those.
did, because apparently he had gone to those businesses before. But even if that's the case,
but
he
either
did
got
frequent
work
those
or got
places.
turned down from work.
He still sexually he targeted Asian women, and during this crime, he targeted Asian women. Mm-hmm. It's directly related to the race of these women that were like 6 out of 8 of the women that were killed.
Yeah, so
or 6 out of 7. I guess one was a man.
You had I think he was injured but not killed. I believe. I could be wrong.
8 people killed. 1 person died.
One person. I think. Okay. I think it was a guy. One of the male. I think it was a male. But you had a Facebook post about that when it happened. And then especially after he had the what we are assuming is a bullshit argument that it was sex addiction.
I posted that like 15 minutes before the press conference. I didn't even know there was going to be a press conference.
Right, and so you had mentioned that, about how, the rhetoric against Asians, and especially the Chinese, have increased. And oddly enough, and it tends to happen, you make these posts, and like the same day, something pops up on NBC that'll kind of talk about that. Because you're weird like that. And I want to put this is NBC News. There were 3,800 anti-Asian racist incidents, mostly against women, in the past year. 531. So this is from March to March of this year. 531 have occurred this year. 62%, according to the report. And this is a report from the reporting forum Stop AAPI Hate on Tuesday revealed those incidents. 68% of those were against women.
So on my post, I had mentioned 28,000, and it's not because I didn't see the 38. I was looking for violent. So apparently, there's 28,000. I believe this is how I understood it when I was looking. I may have found an old article, but I thought I checked the dates. It's because they say
It could have been over a longer
incidents-
lifespan because this was
Well,
just the last year.
No, it was the same topic,
Okay.
yeah. But like 2,800 of them were included violence or were a physical attack. Some of
2,800
those,
because you
the
said
30
28,000.
Yeah, no,
so it is
sorry.
2,800. Okay, I thought it was a little high there. I just
2,800,
want
yeah.
to make sure we correct that. before we move on. I don't
2,800,
wanna
and
get
then it
emails.
was 3,800 incidents, which include being denied service, just other forms of discrimination that don't include violent acts.
So that's I was actually kind of speculating is like what if the shooter was denied those services in the past and that pent up as the aggression and violence.
I don't think that's the case.
I mean, like he went to those places for that and they're like, no, we don't do that here, and then he assumed they did. I mean, I'm thinking
I think it could be a case.
That could be possible, yeah.
because we know he did visit them.
If he's an
and-
incel and he, like I said, like the racism might not be because it could be because he associates Asian-owned massage places with sex work.
well,
And
it's
that's
not,
still
it's,
racism.
That is
it's-
yeah, that is racism.
It is
but
racist,
that
but
might
it's-
be why he was doing it.
That's due to American pop culture and especially
Yeah,
movies.
I mean-
It's
Full Metal
racism.
Jacket.
It's
Full
all-
Metal
it's-
Jacket
it's
was a big example of that, where
I mean,
"Me Love You Long Time."
Vietnamese prostitutes were a real thing.
Yeah, but
that was real.
it became like a stereotype for all Asians because
I
Americans
think
are just not that good at
all
identifying.
races have sex workers.
They
Oh,
do,
yeah.
but I think Asians specifically have like there's more it's more a stereotype thing where you see an Asian massage parlor, one will it's already in the back of the head. I bet they do happy
Right.
endings there, and so that's kind of my point, I think, and that's maybe what he thought.
But I mean, my point though is even if that's what he thought, it's still racist. Racism is still a fuel,
Oh, it
so
is.
it would still be a hate crime.
This is ACAB of the week.
Okay, so this is a good time to go ahead and segue into our ACAB of the week. And Al, you wanted to talk about the press conference following our last story regarding Captain Jay Baker of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, that son of a bitch. So I was watching this press conference about it yesterday, and I was just kind of blown away when the Cherokee County sheriff got on there and was like, he was just having a really bad day, and this is what he did.
I want to correct real quick. He was actually not the sheriff. He was a captain. He was a
Captain?
spokesman. He was a he was a
Okay.
captain, but he was a spokesman for them. He was their
Oh,
The
so
screen-
his
this-
job is to not say stupid shit, and
Yeah.
he said
Yeah,
stupid
Yeah,
shit.
he
screen-
said the most absolute. Go ahead. What did
The
he say?
screen while I was watching it just said Cherokee County Sheriff on there. That's
Okay.
why.
He was speaking
So-
for the sheriff's
What did he
department.
say? What did this asshole say?
He-
That was. Oh, I'm sure he was. All for the victim and.
The exact quote was, "Yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did." And there's
I saw a joke that said cops empathized with someone that says they had a bad day and killed 8 people. That's
Yeah,
one-
he said he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope. And later on, Baker said Long told investigators that the attacks were not racial. We talked about he said they were not racial motivated.
How did
And
he
this
have
is-
a bad day? Did he lose at Fortnite or something?
he said the suspect did take responsibility for the shootings. He does claim that it was not racially motivated. He apparently has an issue, what he considers a sex addiction, and sees these locations as a temptation for him that he wanted to eliminate.
Okay, so I think I was right, that he's connected sex work with Asian.
So immediately, like
places.
this Captain Jay Baker was just blasted and criticized because obviously these are inappropriate and insensitive to the victims when you're kind of just like, he had a bad day, because that's what you do when you have a bad fucking day. You go and just murder 8 people.
I tend to get a beer and go in my bathtub when I have a bad day.
Smoke a little something.
Right.
Right? Never once have I thought, hey, I'll go shoot up 3 different establishments and drive 27 miles while I'm premeditated. That's premeditated when you're driving.
And never once
It's a
did I
spree.
think of that.
Once he goes in on it, he can't stop.
It's a Pringle shooting. Like when
Yeah, once you your
That's
option,
intense. I'm
your,
sorry,
your
that was
options
awful. I'm
are to
sorry.
keep going or go home and get arrested. It's still a spree murder, and it's not a serial killing; it's a spree killing.
It's a spree killing.
So you guys want to talk about what? So after the remarks surface, and because obviously once you say some horrible shit like that, like internet's going to do what the internet does, and they're going to like just go through your history. And did you guys see that fucking shirt that he had on, or that he had?
I
shared?
did not see the shirt. I heard what the shirt said.
Right. So the post says, and it's been removed, and I'm not going to try to
Of
Google
course,
it right
it's
now.
been removed.
But there's
Facebook
screenshots-
didn't remove it.
No, they and like I said, we talked earlier about the cancel culture with how they don't and they're selective on what they remove. But he made this post. Place your order while they last. Above a photo of 2 shirts that said COVID-19 imported virus from China, and it's CHY-NA.
Well, okay, so this is one thing that I want to say about the China hate, is I also hate China, but like the Chinese government. As a leftist, I think we can all hate China for being one of the most authoritarian regimes in the fucking world.
Oh, there's a whole lot of leftists that like are full on in support of China. We call them tankies.
This is why leftists hate each other.
Yeah, because tankies exist.
Because they're not communist. China is not an actual communist state. They are a capitalist state that's run by an authoritarian. They're not communist.
I have an issue with any government that censors what its citizens can say.
I also have a problem with governments that have concentration camps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean,
Fuck Mulan.
tankies will argue that the concentration camps aren't really there, and it's just American media that is portraying it as that, and we
run
shouldn't
into
trust
these
the
tankies,
American
so-
media. And, you know, to
have to
some
draw
degree,
hands
yes,
if I
we
see
shouldn't trust all of America media. We should
There's a lot
look
more than
further,
American
but
media. Jesus Christ.
there are-
American media beats off China because that's who we get their. We give each other's. We sell our culture to China. Like
there are red flags with China that we should not ignore.
Their flag is red. That's a good point.
And not only that, like we should. I know we shit on Disney in the past and how they bow down to,
I wasn't
to
even
China.
going to start. You're the one that said it.
No, we've already talked about this, Sam. But
Mulan got nominated for an Academy Award, and they shot next to a fucking concentration
No.
camp.
Well, not only that, but then like they'd also made decisions like to not piss off China with certain things.
Yeah, the Doctor Strange thing that no one seems to remember except me.
Yeah, and it's not only them. Didn't the NBA or some other sports teams like they wanted?
Yeah,
to
we
wear
bow
that,
down to China.
It was the support
South
Hong Kong
Park's
thing.
about
Right?
the
No,
only
and
one
Blizzard,
that'll actually say shit about them.
If
Blizzard
you can't,
bows down to
Blizzard
China.
bows
all
down.
the
if you
fucking
can't
time.
talk shit about your own government, there's an issue with your government.
And then when your country can't talk shit about their government because they own so fucking much. So my point is, there's a lot of things we can actually say about fuck China, but I don't,
We segued real hard from this
Somehow,
ACAB.
somehow conservatives just hate people from China and still... conservatives love authoritarianism, so they find a way to like hate the Chinese people and still suck off their government.
Oh, but yeah, at the same time, they like bitch about shit being made in China, and they want American-made products, but yet they fly Trump flags that were made in China. They wear Trump hats that are made in China.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. We should all hate China's government. Is basically what I'm saying.
And not only that, but I mean, fuck it. You said Trump, so I'm gonna go on that. The whole time, how many, especially at the QAnon fucking people, they'll shit on communist China and the dictator this, but they were happy having their king, who just keep. Didn't you hear that tweet where he was, because he's an idiot and he doesn't know constitutional law, where it had Trump 2016, Trump 2020, Trump 24, and it kept going, and like they
Yeah.
fucking supported that, like they were
The
happy.
basis of conservatism is authoritarianism, so of course they're always going to lead to that.
These are the
They
same
want to be
people
ruled. They're like
who look at the very, extremely neoliberal Joe Biden, and they call him a communist.
They call him a China puppet too.
That's what we were talking about last week of how Ben Shapiro tries to kind of manipulate and trick his audience into thinking that leftists love Joe Biden, and that's what the left looks like. They want you to think the middle is left because they're so far right.
Did you guys see a meme that it was? I don't know if it was a meme or just it was a graphic that shows how the U.S. sees itself as political parties, and it has Bernie Sanders
yeah. I know
and
what you're talking about.
Warren on the left, Joe Biden in the center, and then all Mitch McConnell and everybody else on the right. But how the rest of the world sees us, according to what their beliefs are, they have Bernie and the Sanders, Bernie Sanders and the Elizabeth Warren camp in the center, and everyone else, getting further to the right, and that's how Canada.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's
People from Canada in the comments were saying that when they are taught about American politics, they're just taught that it's all right.
Yeah, it's all.
It
mostly
is.
right.
They're
right.
correct. They're completely correct.
Yeah. Yeah, when the mainstream media talks about left and right, they're really talking about far right and center. And
correct.
You think about this.
There is no leftist media. There is no left-wing media. That's
We are left-wing media.
We are the left-wing media.
Bernie
we are as
is
far
not
as left-wing
about
media is gonna
getting
get.
rid of capitalism completely. He's like, he wants to bring in more socialism, but it's not abolish capitalism. So that would mean he's like about 50-50 capitalism, socialism, which is center.
I would like to pick his brain off the record and see if he would really be down to being further left, and he just knows that that's not even a sell right now.
I will say though that
because if you're a politician, you're not going to you're not going to get away with the shit we
have
say
to go
and
with
be a
the
politician.
politics that he presents, and the politics he presents would be.
I mean,
dead
I
center,
understand
I think.
that though, because no politician is going to be able to get up and deliver
you're
our
right,
platform.
yeah, but
any
just,
of us on what we
just,
actually think or not be able to be a politician.
no, no, we can't.
It's just the fact that how we see America sees him as so far left, and he truly is center, as he presents center. Whether it's because he has to or that's what he is, it's that he's still center.
I will give credit where credit's due, and
Sure,
I say I will do that.
center.
I will shit on when I need to, but I will give credit where credit is due. And again, this is from me listening to another podcast, and I didn't realize that what Biden attempted to do to introduce the $15 minimum wage was he knew was a long shot and out of the norm. But the fact that he tried,
But
he knew that he knew it was going to go through, or he thought, hey, maybe if the parliamentarian agreed, the $15 minimum wage would have been attached to the reconciliation process. The parliamentarian shot it down and said it was couldn't be allowed, but it was an attempt was made, and he didn't have to do that. And I'm saying
best president of my life.
If you throw some fucking...
I'm going to keep saying that because it's 100% true.
That's being grateful
you're
for
making them cringe.
breadcrumbs being thrown.
That's,
crumbs are better than what I've been
welcome
fed the
to
last
America.
I mean, they're not.
Well, right now in the Senate, until the filibuster gets broken, there's only certain avenues to introduce that shit like that, because if it's going to take a 60-vote majority, we all know, hell, even Joe Manchin, the fucking West Virginia senator, who is I'm going to air quote here, a Democrat, voted that shit down, even in Cinema, wherever she's from.
What was that?
Arizona.
Prissy little bitches. That Democratic girl looked really cute walking up to vote no.
That was Cinema.
Huh?
That was Cinema. She went and gave her big
Okay.
thumbs down on it.
Yeah, fuck her.
Yeah, so
She looked really cute though.
it was so. I mean, it was already a long shot, and those two would have. I mean, with a 50-50 split majority, losing even one, Cinema and or Manchin, it had to kind of be done through the reconciliation process. So I'm not going to applaud. I'm just saying there was no reason for him to even attempt, unless you think it's just to garner
I mean, I think it's a show. Yeah, I think
It's a good
something.
show.
I mean, you
if-
got performative shit.
To
I
be fair,
appreciate
if
the
the
show.
parliamentarian didn't rule that it couldn't be allowed as part of the reconciliation process, it would have gone through. And that's my point. And the attempt was made. And
Better than Obama.
so
Obama.
I will say I will give some partial credit because there's that.
Wait,
He's working against a lot too. Obama had a lot against him, but Obama played it kind of like, I'm going to try to make everyone happy still. Joe Biden knows that there's no point in trying to appease these people. There's no point in trying to appease the Republican Party.
That's because they've already made it clear that they're not gonna be
Obama.
partisan.
They made it clear when Obama was in, but he still spent 8 years being like, I'm still trying to make everybody happy.
Well, and Biden also recently fired a warning shot, calling Mitch McConnell out. Mitch McConnell, because they're trying to get rid of the filibuster, and Mitch McConnell's like, we're gonna go scorched earth. He's like, fucking, they were like, bring it. I think they should. To maybe get some legislation passed because
Otherwise,
because what typically happens is after the 2 years, the midterms, unless it's a wildly popular president, and we both know that, or we all know rather, that Biden is not widely popular. He's still polling in above 50 right now, but the trend is that they could lose either the Senate and or the House. It's already a slim majority in the House, and so really they need to work their asses off in the next 2 years to get
the soul of
anything
America has been fought over fiercely these last decade.
And it's just going back and forth, and nothing really gets done because neither side wants to really work with the other side.
And that's also why they get so pissed off at this culture war shit.
I kind of
because
feel,
that's
and
all, like it's a culture war for the soul of this country.
fuck Pelosi. There's a lot of shit she does that pisses me off, but I do feel like she has made more attempts to work with the Republicans than I would have if I were in her position.
I mean, she and Schumer had meetings with Trump over. They had meetings with Trump over, trying to get the border wall and things like that. And obviously, the Dems who had the majority of the
Politicians
time,
will be politicians. That's
Yeah.
what they fucking do.
but they at least still had the meeting. And I mean, I don't really see GOP reaching out.
Are they, like, they're not, their whole goal is to block everything that Democrats want to do. Where Democrats are at least, like, they want at least a couple of people or Republicans signing on to their stuff because it improves their ability to get it passed.
Republicans at this point, like I said, like it all comes back to the culture war. They know that they're at a cusp of like losing like the cultural knowledge of the boomers are dying. All the younger people are like so when they're playing from attrition. Like they're playing from a position of attrition where they're losing like as time is going on. So they know when you are in that strategy, you just play obstructionist. So you can try to get every little thing through because you're losing to time. They know that.
Right.
Republicans know that.
So while just before I record, and we're talking about Republicans actually now starting to vote on some of the bills, some are actually starting to cross the aisle. Just shortly before we started this record, the House passed the American Dream and Promise Act of 2021.
Did that pass?
It passed.
I listened to part of that today.
And of course, just real quick, it would provide a pathway for citizenship for young undocumented immigrants known as Dreamers, as well as for temporary protected status recipients and deferred and forced departure beneficiaries. The final vote count was 228, 197. 9 Republicans joined. Now that is only 9. And then there was like a Violence Against Women Act. I don't really remember what that was, but 179 Republicans voted against that.
Yeah, they're like, I still want to beat my wife.
That's
That's
kind
cancel
of what
culture. You can't cancel me
So
for
I
beating my
was
wife.
That number may not be
listening-
accurate, but it was in the high 170s.
I listened to the
Republicans in general. It's
there-
a Republican stance that they.
I listened to the debates today, or their little going back and forth on the Dream Act, and I also listened to. I missed the beginning of it, and I'm listening in my car, so I don't have like the screen telling me what's going on. I don't know what exactly it was, but it was like a hearing about the it's Asian American violence. And the one thing that stood out in my mind for that is they were talking about a previous bill before Congress that was just to denounce violence
It was
or the racism.
just to denounce an official declaration of
and
denunciation.
It was the guy, one of the Asian guy from Lost, was up there speaking, and he's like, I find it really sad that 160 Republicans voted against the bill that would require no money, no actions. All you had to do is denounce racism against Asian American Pacific Islanders, and you all voted no. Like, how fucking... Like, that shows how shitty they are. It wasn't going to take money. It didn't take anything. Just fucking denounce racism. And they voted against it. 160 Republicans.
They looked at
Could be
that and they're
protest
like,
votes,
oh
'cause they don't
shit,
wanna
that's
work
my
with them.
base. My base is racist. I can't vote against my base. They put me in this position to speak their voice, and that's what I'm doing because Republicans, the citizens that vote for Republicans.
I also think that they want to
who
have.
they're representing.
I think they're
representing their people accurately.
No, sir. What they're actually doing is they're establishing a voting record of not voting with Democrats. So their report card against Democrats looks really
We're
good.
both right.
When it comes to what bills they side on, and I think that's what they're doing.
You're both right.
Yeah, we're both right. If they want to tie, I'm against Democrats, and the Democrats are like anti-racism, then it's the same game they play with abortion. Like, oh, they must be pro-death. Like, oh, we're pro-racism.
How did Marjorie vote for the dream?
This bitch won't vote on anything the Democrats. She probably voted to adjourn as soon as they got it there, just to troll again.
I didn't even hear her speaking. I heard the fucking majority House leader. What's his fucking name?
The House leader?
Minority.
Oh, the minority House leader. I really don't know.
McCarthy.
That's right.
What a
McCarthy.
name.
I
To hold
didn't
that
hear
position.
he's like. We wouldn't even be here if it weren't for Biden during the debates when he said, "Come to our borders, come here." And what got me is so. I was out doing deliveries today, so I was in and out of my car. And the first part of the day, I was listening to the civil rights and civil liberty hearing that they had, and then I didn't hear that they had switched what they were doing. So I had thought that he was chiming in on the Asian American conversation with the violence and stuff. So I was really fucking pissed because I thought that was his argument.
You still have a reason to be
we
pissed.
wouldn't be in this. Yeah, it's still, but I was more pissed off at that point because I'm like, really? Fucking 6 people were killed yesterday and you're bitching because he kept using the word illegal. It's like we have people coming to our borders that want a better life, and you're blaming that for this violent crime that happened yesterday. But that wasn't the case.
Well, the right is obviously seizing on the surge of migrants that are coming to Texas right now. Obviously, as the weather gets warmer, that's going to happen. But this is higher than it was in previous years because I guess they know that they want asylum, and they now know that they won't be stripped away from their kids and separated.
Well,
they'll still be detained. Obviously.
A lot of fucking kids.
That border
coming
wall is
over.
just going to be decaying now. No one's
Yeah.
keeping up with that shit.
But-
It's not being finished.
So, 46 GOP senators say that it was unlawful to stop the production of that or to halt that. Mm-hmm. So,
Well, it's listening to it today. It was infuriating because they were bitching about these children. We have record numbers of illegal children coming into this country. They're fucking children. They're children. And you're talking about turning these children away and getting angry because these children want to come here? They're fucking children.
right.
Those are anchor babies. You better watch out. That's
Anchor
their whole-
babies?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
they become dreamers. And the Republicans don't want more
Good thing
dreamers.
Trump half-assed everything he did. Because, everything Trump did was pretty easy to overturn, day one, if not a little later.
He did actually make some things more difficult, especially when it comes to the the immigration policies that he put in place. He put little roadblocks on his last days to make it
Because that's what he cared about. He that was one of his main things campaigning was anti-immigration.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, how Mexico was going to pay for the wall, which now I saw people who defend that, saying that the trade deal ended up paying for the billions that we stole from
Is
the
that why
military.
they had to GoFundMe it?
Pretty much. Do you remember that GoFundMe? That was amazing.
Didn't that get refunded?
I think so. Because I either got refunded or they canceled it because
Because the government can't take those kind of
Yeah.
donations.
right.
So
They ended up sending all that back. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for joining us for episode 7 of Apostates on the Fringe. As always, you can find us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. If you want links to the articles or contact the show, you can visit us at apostatepod.com. Please consider sharing the show out to your friends and leaving us a 5-star review everywhere you can, and we'll see you guys next week.
Tino's a dick because I'm the one who always comes over and brings him treats, but he's over there loving on Sam.
I mean, he's a cuddler. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thank you all very much.
Apostates on the fringe. Apostates on the fringe.
The views and opinions of the hosts of Apostates on the Fringe do not represent the views and opinions of the Atheist Society of Knoxville. For links to all our musical contributors, go to apostatepod.com and check the About Us page. A big thank you to Michael Scott Arden, who allows the show to use his full catalog.